On the outskirts of Armagh, in the picturesque countryside of Ballymacnab, an oasis of floral beauty and traditional hospitality offers a refreshing break from the demands and pace of modern life. The Neo Bread and Breakfast is run by local woman Kathleen McGeown and her husband Noel. Kathleen reflects on her years growing up in Armagh's rural community.
Well, it was certainly very different because it's a very long time ago when I grew up here. So it was very different, totally different world that I grew up in. In this house here, this is where my husband was born and reared, and there was no electricity or no running water. And the electricity didn't come this way to about 1965. We were married in 1960 and there wasn't any electricity, there was gas lights here.
How do you balance your time between the bed and breakfast and the garden? Because it's a massive garden, 3 acres, you know.
Well, the garden is the one that sort of suffers. The garden suffers because in this time here, the bed and breakfast has to take priority. I mean, I can leave a few weeds in the garden. The plants are not going to object to living alongside the weeds, but the guests that would come in would object if the place wasn't cleaned. So the house takes priority over the garden. But anyway, from about 1980, we moved here about 82, and the first thing I started on, of course, was the garden. So I planted, nice trees, native trees to begin with, and we had a little bit of shelter out at the back, but not nearly enough. And gradually then, I got a bit more ground off Noel and a bit more, and so the garden crept on out. And then about 10 years ago, the cattle gave up the cattle altogether, and that just gave me free range totally. I could go mad with the garden then.
The range of plants, trees and flowers on the grounds demands a massive level of commitment from both Kathleen and her husband. Their dedication reveals the extent of their enthusiasm for gardening.
If you could pick one spot in the garden, that would be your favourite spot?
Well, it would be a time rather than a spot. Maybe it would be, late in the evening, about 10:30 on a summer's night, in the woodland part of the garden. That would be my favourite bit.